Hey, Jodi.
Hey, Amanda. How's it going?
It's going great. Hello.
Good. Happy holidays.
You as well. You as well. And happy holidays to you guys listening. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome on Facebook Live. Welcome on YouTube. My name's Jodi Proznick. I'm a bassist, composer, educator out here on the West Coast of Canada.
And I'm Amanda Tosoff, and I'm a jazz pianist, composer, and educator based in Toronto, the other side of the country. But we are here today together, but also not together. Together in spirit.
We've been together in spirit for months now. Amanda and I, many months ago, started a company with our dear friend, Francesca Fung, who's an arts administrator in management. She's our executive director, called Music Arts Collective. And it's a way of totally celebrating music, our love of art making, and our real deep desire to share our passion for making stuff with sound with as many people as possible. So we have teamed up and we've been doing these live streams. How many have we done now, Amanda?
Ooh, I think we've done a couple of months in September. So maybe 7.
It's amazing.
7 or so.
Amazing. It's gone by super fast. So
it has. And hopefully we'll do them even more frequently in the new year.
Yes.
Maybe every week.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So today we're gonna do a bit more of a practical conversation on arranging Christmas tunes, holiday songs.
Woo.
And arranging is one of the things that we both really love to do, to put our own stamp on a tune that we love. So we're going to share an arrangement of Jodi's today and some 3 tips that you can go try after this live stream, or during if you want. But so
both Amanda and I like to kind of pare things down to be as simple and clear-headed as possible, because the music mountain can feel really big. And when you start off with just a blank piece of manuscript, you're like, okay, I don't even know where to start. So one of the things that's so cool about arranging, and especially Christmas tunes, is that they're probably so in your body already. We've been hearing these songs since we were born. So it's kind of a fun place to start for those of you who are new to arranging. And hopefully what we're going to give you today are some cool tips and tricks on how to sort of start right away. Like after this webinar, you go to the piano or go to your guitar, go to your horn and start messing around. So
absolutely. And today we're obviously talking about holiday songs because it's the holidays. But of course, these 3 tips apply to any songs, jazz standards, pop tunes, folk songs, whatever, even classical songs if you want. So, have some fun and explore. Before we do, we'd love to just find out where you guys are tuning in from. Maybe in the chat, if you guys can just say, where you're from and your favorite holiday song, or favorite song if you don't like holiday songs.
Give me just a favorite song.
Like holiday songs. I mean, I actually have to admit, well, I know some of my students were like, nope, no holiday songs. I have to admit though, this year I haven't been out at a mall. I haven't been doing Christmas gigs. So I haven't really heard much holiday music, so I'm actually going to enjoy putting some on in the next couple days.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive in. Maybe that's better. Yeah. Maybe just like a week of just a lot of it instead of the, 2 months in the mall hearing, sleigh bells.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, okay. Well, before we get going with our tips and tricks, we should probably talk a little bit about what's happening in the new year. So we're going to take a couple weeks off. I hope all of you do too, because we've been super busy this fall. And once we launch in January again, we have 4 webinars that we have planned out coming up in the new year. One for teachers, one for listeners, one for pianists or any musician who wants to learn some piano tips and tricks, and for anyone who's curious about starting composition. So please go to our website and www.musicartscollective.com And please sign up for our mailing list and we'll let you know about those things. One in January, February, March, and April. And we've been having a blast. There's also our previous webinars available. You can still download some of them for a small amount of money. And you get a beautiful PDF with all of plus the video. You can watch it in perpetuity for a little while in the hub.
Yeah. And so if you're bored, you've got things to do. We have things for you to do.
Exactly. Lots of practice. Lots to practice.
Yes. So speaking of practicing, shall we get started?
Let's get started.
Okay. So I'm going to get us set up here.
Beautiful.
Okay. Awesome. So
That's
Jodi,
supposed to be us, by the way.
Oh, really? Oh. Aww.
That's why I'm wearing my toque, is I'm coordinating with the graphic.
Amazing. Amazing. Very wintry.
Yeah.
So here we go. Our 3 tips for arranging. Jodi, you're going to start us off. So
Yeah.
I'll let you.
So a little bit of a backstory. A couple of years ago, I was asked to be a co-arranger on an album for a wonderful vocalist named Catherine Penfold on Just in Time Records. And my husband, Tilden Webb, and I got to work. She picked the tunes. And so one of the tunes I was asked to arrange was Santa Claus is Coming to Town. So we're going to dive into Santa Claus is Coming to Town and some of the things I did to just make it a little more, I'd say sassier, a little more interesting than the normal version. Although the normal version is absolutely beautiful and fine, nothing wrong with it, but it's fun to mess around and try new things. So, some of the tips I have, to kind of turn these songs into your own. The first one is where we are going to talk about time signatures, how you can fool around with time signatures or meter. So normally Santa Claus is Coming to Town is in 4/4. You better watch out. You better not cry, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So what I decided to do was try. I say it's like the reindeer has a broken foot. So you have 5/4. So you better watch out. 4, 5. You better not cry. 4, 5. Better not pout. 4, I'm telling you why. And then, instead of going, Santa Claus is coming to town, keeping it in 5/4, I went, what if I turned it to 3/4 with a dotted quarter note? So, Santa Claus is in to town. So I have 2 bars of 3/4 into a bar of 5/4. And I just thought it was kind of like fun to do it that way. And then when we get to the bridge, you'll notice in this chart that I decided to flip it back into 4/4. So it's almost like this tension and release that you can do pretty easily with meter. Instead of keeping in 5/4 the whole time, I just sort of played around with that. So the A sections have this sort of tension, and then the bridge goes into a bit of a release. So yeah. So Amanda, you want to share anything about that?
Well, I was just going to ask you, how do you go about figuring out, what meter to put something in? I mean, did you try a whole bunch of different meters and just, see what you liked best?
You know what? To be perfectly honest, I didn't. I just sat down and it just sort of came out. It's just like, you better watch out, better not cry. It's just like, it was really quite fast. It came really fast. And that, again, the measure of 3/4 came really fast. When you're a bass player and you live in the world of rhythm all the time, and just these rhythms are sort of at nature, and you're just sort of, it's like a puzzle piece you put together where you have, almost like a bar of 3 and then a 2/4. Yeah, you just play around and at the piano, and it came pretty quickly and easily. This one actually. So yeah, it's just like, what can I do new? Oh, I'll change the meter. Let's try 5/4. Oh, that works. It was like literally like that.
Gives a new life to it, and I love that funky lopsidedness of it. It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
So meter. What else can we do?
Well, the next little tip is, so you can change the meter, but then you can also add or subtract bars. This is actually one of my favorite little devices, is adding a bar where there isn't normally a bar. And one of the reasons, especially with vocal tunes, and both Amanda and I love writing with lyrics, is that if you are throwing the lyrics at a listener like constantly and never giving the phrase to have a chance to just settle so someone can actually process what the words they just heard, or at the end of a form, they're just sort of digesting. There's like a digestion period before you hit or like the end of a section. You can sort of just chill out, or you can truncate. And that's also unexpected too. So we're going to show you those two options. One is by adding a little extra something, little extra bar just to let the dust settle, as they say, or by snipping it and coming back up to the top. So in this example here, you'll see at the end of the bridge, what I did was add an extra bar. And part of it is because I flipped back to 5/4. So rather than back to 5/4 and then head back to the A, I felt like it needed a chance to sort of settle in the 5/4 again before we head back to the last A. So that's my +1. You'll see at the end of the chart there. Amanda, what's the next slide? What have we got? Oh,
Yeah,
yes. So did you want to demo? You had an idea. This was Amanda's or ...
So like you said, it can be fun to sort of pause by adding bars, or it can also be fun to push forward and sort of, surprise by moving forward and not actually doing the bars that were originally there. So in this case, on Jodi's chart, the coming to town bar, couple of bars, you can take that away and maybe just go right back to the top. And of course, this only works if it works with the lyrics or the melody. And in this case, I think we can make it work. So, so I'll just go from the Santa Claus is coming to town. So. You could kind of have some fun with that. So chopping off bars. So that's always really fun for sure.
Yeah, you get rid of the to town because Santa Claus is coming. He's making a list. And that's the other thing. Important thing to notice, though, it doesn't really impact, it still makes sense. So Santa Claus is coming. He's making a list. So that's the other thing you want to be a little bit mindful of with lyrics, although, whatever. But again, on songs like this that everybody knows and loves so much, you can do this and, it's not going to, people are like, oh, they're still hearing this lyric in their head because it's so common, so familiar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and and then the good old vamp. When all else fails, put in a vamp, or a repeated section that just kind of hangs out for a while. And that's what I did in the coda, which was going to that F7 sharp 11 and then just hanging on it for an extended period of time as like a vamp. Although a vamp is officially you keep going and going and going. So it's really 3 bars, but you could keep it going. I mean, in a live gig, you might want to just keep spinning around on that F7 sharp 11 because who doesn't want to play an F7 sharp 11 for a long time? They always say, like on these arrangements, often it's the intro and the outro that are the most fun. The jazz musicians will get a little more adventurous on those outros and stuff, right? There's a lot of examples and recordings of that happening, like Miles Davis live at Carnegie Hall. Like there's all these these turnarounds that go on forever.
Love it, so good. It's really fun to put these into, like, they can be at the end of the melody when you go into solos. They can be within the solos. They can be an outro, like you're saying. So adding bars at the end, especially if you have a cool chord like the F7, it's really, really fun for sure. What else? You can do shots.
Oh, yes. So now that I went, it's in 5/4. Great. So you could just groove on a 5/4 swing groove, which is a possibility. But what I decided to do is to make it even a little bit more surprising, I guess, because shots can feel a little like, always say whenever you're leaving space for things to play on their own, there's always this heightened sense of like, woo, what's going to happen? Or are they going to play the shot together? Or, what's going on? This stop time type thing. So I decided to put a shot on beat 4. So bop, 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 doom, bop, doom, bop. Santa Claus is coming, pop to town, he's making a list, checking it twice, phone to find out, you know? So it's like you're just sort of punctuating our little period on the sentence on beat 4 there. And then in the bridge, I wanted to kind of keep the shots, but instead of being on the beat, I wanted to do something that kind of had that offbeat, you know, that feeling of like up, you know. So we can tease you and your, so it's on the and 1 and 2, 3 and boop bop, ga do ga do ga do ga. But then the same thing with the shots in the bridge. I repeated it 3 times, but then in that 4th bar, I decided to do something a little different. Again, like you kind of hear a theme, you hear it repeated the 3rd time, and then that 4th time, you give the listener a little something new. You know, it's still in the motive of the upbeat or playing on the off beats, but it's not exactly the same. So again, the listener goes, "Oh, cool! That was a bit of a surprise, right?" Yeah, so the shots are fun. But then, you know, the shots, you can continue into the solo section, but in the case of this tune, I decided to just go straight into playing time and in 4/4 actually. So the shots just were for the head. But you can use them in solo sections too. Sometimes it's like a to launch the solo, or you know, or maybe as a way of anchoring behind the soloist to do the shots, or you don't like play them as stop time. You could just sort of infer them as you're playing time. You know, there's lots of ways of playing around with shots.
Yeah, and this is I'm curious with this. In this case, did you figure out, like, did you play around just in 5/4, and then once you kind of got you know, your form set of your arrangement, then you started playing around with shots? Because that's one thing my students, they hear a final version and they go, "Oh my God, where do I start?" And so I often tell them, get the basic floor, figure out your meter, and then add stuff later, like do the actual ranging of like the instrumentation later.
Yeah, I mean, I always get, you know, mapping out a form, sort of like how do you want the arrangement, like what do I want for an intro and you know, an ending. Even if you don't know exactly what you're going to do, sort of like, okay, I need to come up with an intro and I need to come up with an ending. This is the meter, but in the case of this one, I must admit, and this just happens as you get older, like me, you have played so much music that the shots just sort of happened pretty quickly. I wanted to, again, I have all, when you listen to a lot of music, and in particular for me, I wanted this sort of to feel like Ray Brown trio with Benny Green type, tight little piano trio arrangement kind of thing. So I kind of had those ideas in my head, and then it just sort of came out. But for students, certainly start with the meter. Start with mapping out the form and the chord changes, really important, the chords that you want. And then you can start figuring out, do I want to add shots? Do I want to, what's the instrumentation? And, you know, yeah, you definitely scaffold from there. So you pick your tune first, listen to a bunch of versions of the tune, map out, you know, do you want an intro? Do you want an ending? What that might be. And then, yeah, you just go from there for sure.
Awesome.
How about you?
Same thing. I get the basics, you know, well, sometimes it can map out a little bit all together once you get started, but, you know, usually I figure out my opening 8 bars or so. I figure out like a, you know, a chord progression that I want to use. And then, you know, sometimes I'll hear a shot, like you're saying, you'll just hear something and I'll make a note of that. But sometimes it's, you know, you don't have to figure it all out in advance. You can let it just sort of go as you get into it. But sometimes it can be just to get started, put something down, and you can always change it as you go.
100%. Yeah, you can add sections and, you know, add an interlude if you want. You know, there's ways of going about making it your own for sure.
Absolutely.
Adding and subtracting. And there's, I mean, for me, not everybody works this way, but I know for me, a lot of times even with my original compositions at their basic level, like what's the melody, what's the chord progressions, what's the general rhythmic figures or anything, I'm able to play the entire thing without writing a thing down. And I sort of work that way a little bit. So I just, whatever comes up, and if it keeps coming out the same way, then I'm like, okay, it's coming. That's the thing. And then I mess around from there. Some people work where they write stuff down first and then they tinker around, but I was always like playing it on the piano first and then writing it down. So the shots kind of came at the same time.
Amazing. Well, should we listen to a little clip of this? Well, maybe we'll listen a little bit into the solo section. Then, unfortunately, I'm going to cut it off. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to fade it out gracefully. But you guys can.
But here's the good news.
Yes.
You want to hear the good news? Shall we share the good news?
Yes, please.
The good news is that these charts will be available for free on our website. This is our gift to you. Merry Christmas. So if the chart's not coming as super clear right now, and also we'll make sure that there's a link to hear the recording so you can see it and hear it and maybe even play it.
Yeah, there's the rhythm section part, as you can see right now, and also the vocal part with the melody, vocal and melody part as well. So here's Jodi's arrangement. Here we go.
This is Catherine Penfold. I should tell you who's on it. It's Catherine Penfold singing, Tilden Webb on piano, Jesse Cahill playing drums, and Steve Caldestat on tenor saxophone. This is from her 2017, I think, release of Keep Christmas With You on Just in Time.
Okay, here we go.
You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list and checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty or nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town.
Okay, so awesome. That's so hip. I think Jodi just messaged me that our video wasn't working.
I think it's working now. I think it's working now.
Okay.
We're okay.
Okay. Anyway, hope you guys heard that. If not, you can go check it out. We'll put the link up later. But that's a great arrangement, Jodi. That's very funky. Very cool.
It's actually pretty. It's pretty straightforward, really. There's not a lot of I didn't mess with the harmony too much, but that's what you're going to talk about.
I am going to talk about how to mess with the progression. So yeah, I'm a piano player and I absolutely love messing with harmony. And so I know we have 3 tips we're talking about. This is tip number 3, but within this tip number 3, I'm giving you 3 tips. Okay. So it's a 3-4. the first thing you can do is mess with the create inversions by changing the bass note of the chord that you're dealing with. So you could take the root, the third, the fifth, or maybe even the 7 of the chord and put that on the bottom. So for example, a G13, well, you could put it over the 5. Oh, it sounds very different. It sounds like a minor chord actually in that voicing. Or maybe you can put it over the 7. Right? So you can get a different flavor and create an interesting bass line. And Jodi, of course, as a bass player, is doing this all the time, changing bass notes, to create an interesting kind of bass line through the tune. So I actually got a little carried away. And on the next slide, I changed almost every single chord to have a different bass note. Now, when you're changing, when you're messing with the progression, don't do too much because, sometimes it's better, like Jodi said, just to change 1 or 2 things. Just, a little bit of spice, right? As you were saying, Jodi. Mm-hmm. So here's my little take. I'm also changing some of the chord qualities a little bit. I'm simplifying them to triads. But here's my version with some inversions. Some triads. It's like dramatic. Okay.
Ooh.
Okay. Now check this out.
There's the grease on that dominant chord.
Yeah. Totally. Now here we go. Keep going. All right. So that sounds very dramatic. Of course, that you might not want to do that many bass note changes, but the inversions can be really fun to play around with some subtle different harmonies.
I love the descending bass line at the end there. Makes me really happy.
Yeah. The F7, then F7 over E flat, and then like a D7, and then a D7 over C, leading to a G over B. So you get that, bass lines. They're cool.
Beautiful counterpoint.
Thank you very much. You approved my bass line.
I do. I love it.
So another thing that's fun is what I'm calling a subdominant surprise. And actually in Jodi's arrangement, she throws in at the end there where the cadence happens just before the first ending, she throws in a different chord than usual. So she's already reharmonized it. You might go to the 1 chord, the G chord, and instead she goes to F7, which is that funky sort of nice surprise. Oh, cool. So that's what we call flat 7/7. And if you're not a music theory nerd, all good. But this is a subdominant chord. And there's a class of chords that are called subdominant, and there can be fun chords to throw in at these points. When you're expecting it to go to 1, you can actually go to a number of subdominant chords, and it actually sounds really cool. So here's an example. Here's a bunch of them. Some work better than others. Like that F7 is pretty cool. But let's just see what a couple of those sound like. So let's take C major 7. And maybe I'll go to C minor 6, and then back to the top. So that's cool. Or maybe I'll take a couple. Maybe I'll go E flat major 7, F major 7, and kind of create this interesting bass line going up. E flat. I made that one a sus chord at the end, sus natural 3. But yeah, that's kind of cool. Something different. Or of course, there's Jodi's. I think Jodi's is the best choice. The F7, I think it's the
I don't know. The one you just did was pretty darn cool, Amanda.
It was a different vibe, right? Even though they're all sort of working, they all have different kind of colors and moods. And this next one has an even different mood. So A flat major 7, the flat 2 major 7 of the key. So, ooh, it's moody. And then back to the top. So that's those are all subdominant chords from different, not just from the major key, they're from the minor key. I'm just grouping them all together for simplicity. So try doing those in a different key. This is in the key of G, so you can kind of translate those. What's C in the key of G? Well, it's the 4 chord. What's A flat? Well, it's the flat 2. If you think about the number system. Anyway,
and the cool thing is that you have your melody note of
Yes.
a G. So that's why it works. It's because
Yes.
that G note is found in every single one of these chords.
Mhm.
Some are more like the 5 on a C major 7, or the major 7, right? Or the 3rd or the 9. So that's when you start playing around with these common tone, this note that can find all of these chords that this note lives in. You'll sit there for hours just trying to figure out which one you like the best. It's really fun.
It is really fun. It is. So yeah, that's just one little reharm thing. Well, these are 2 little reharm things that we talked about, the inversions. This at the cadence point where you're expecting the one chord, maybe going to one of these subdominant chords, for example. But there's many, many things you can do with reharmonization, but we're not going to get into everything today. But here's the last point before I kind of demonstrate my little arrangement of the same tune. So one thing that's really fun to do is create a pedal point. So in the case of the bridge, what's happening in this song is you have a 2, 5, 1 in the key of C, and then it goes to a 2, 5 in the key of D, and then it kind of makes its way back, in this case to Jodi's wonderful F7 chord, but it's making its way back to the original key of G. Now, what you can do is you can put those 2, 5, 1s over a 5 pedal. So in the key of C, that's G. So put everything over a G, and it has this like triumphant, very cool, like pedally feel. And then you can keep doing it in the next key, and it's a really cool device. Now I snuck in a 4th idea here. So I have the pedal point, which I just played with the basic chords just over a different bass note, over a G. But you can also have some fun. It's a little more adventurous by just harmonizing each one of those melody notes with a major triad, or really many things. But in this case, I'm just doing a major triad because it sounds kind of cool. And I'm doing it in second inversion. So you can see I wrote in a couple. I've got my F chord. It's nothing to do with the actual harmony of the song. It's just a shape, an F triad. And then I have an E flat triad, and then a D triad on the F sharp. And then I'm just continuing to do that for the rest of the section here. Now, it might not be the mood that you're going for because it's a little bit adventurous.
He sees you when you're sleeping.
Yeah. Now, I did sneak in something different here because I wanted it to not just be a C triad. I wanted to kind of move somewhere. But yeah, you can hear that that's kind of very suspended. I'm going somewhere. Now I'm going to do it on the E minor over A. Okay, now I sneak in a couple other chords, which I'll talk about in a second. So that's the pedal point with like choosing like a shape in your right hand and just moving it parallel, which is really fun. Or just take the chord progression that's there, put it over the 5 pedal, and that also sounds really great. Now you can see there's a couple chords there in the green. Those, I'm not going to get too much into this. I'm jam packing. There's just so many options. But that A sharp 7, J sharp diminished 7 rather, goes to it actually should say B minor, but it leads up, which is kind of cool. And then the F7 is leading down. And they're what we call secondary dominance. And you know what, we'll do a video on that later.
Maybe a course.
A whole chorus, yeah. But essentially I just wanted to add some movement out of that pedal. So, so that whole thing, again, just... kind of cool. It creates some nice, again, a nice bass motion. So that's pedal point and sort of using a parallel shape. Okay, so now I'm gonna play my little reharm. I got a little carried away. I like harmony. So I'm using all of these different things. It's probably too much. But I'm going to use some inversions. I'm not showing you guys the chicken scratch of my notes, but I've got some inversions. I've got some pedal points with that parallel thing I just demonstrated. And I also changed keys just because why not? So I'm throwing in some other stuff in there. So let's see if I can play this. Okay. Sing along if you want. And I'm also not going to do it in 5/4. I'm actually going to do it rubato. So of course, here's another take on meter. I'm doing it out of time. Here we go. Here's my pedal point. Parallel triads. Okay, so probably a different take. It's like a little bit of a sadder,
I like
sadder take. So that's with messing with the harmony. And of course, you don't need to do that much to it, but just one or two little things can be really fun. We jam-packed a lot into this little mini lesson. What did we talk about? We got meter. We got meter, changing the meter.
Add shots. Add bars. Take away bars.
Mess with the progression.
Mess with the progression. Yeah. And for those of you who may be watching that are like, whoa, my brain's exploding right now. We're just throwing a bunch of ideas in your basket, which is meant to just run with and play with, not to overwhelm. So you don't have to do any of this. You can just play the tune. But at a very, 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 the other thing we didn't really talk about is how amazing it could be just to change the groove. So that was swing. You could play Latin. You could do an Afro-Cuban. You could do like a New Orleans street beat. You could do like a swank, like an R&B swank groove. There's so many different ways of taking any of these songs and making it your own. And I got to tell you, my friends, when you start to do this, I mean, especially if you don't attach too much to outcome, you just see it as you're playing, just having fun exploring, there will be something that will be like, ooh, this actually really works. For us, for me. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the time when I'm sitting down to arrange, I'm looking at this tune and I'm going, I don't have ideas coming to me. I'm just sitting there going, I wonder if I change this chord, what could I do there? Oh, I don't like that. Oh, I like that. Okay, make a note of that. And I just say, what if I do this? What if I try this? And then I try it. So, I think a lot of the time, we think it just comes to you. And in the case of Jodi, you're saying that your arrangement really did. I mean,
that one did, but I wasn't, but not always. It isn't always like that. Some tunes just sort of come quickly. And again, Amanda and I've been doing this for a while, and the more you do it, the faster you can get at just whipping stuff up. In fact, we've talked about maybe next season doing a kind of like a fast and furious Christmas album where we just get everybody to suggest songs, and we just sort of arrange and do these sort of live stream where you're watching us in real time, kind of throwing stuff together and banter around ideas. So that might be fun. Yeah. To co-create an album with all of you watching, sort of in real time.
Chat ideas in the chat.
Totally. What time signature do you guys want?
So in the meantime, as Jodi mentioned, start with just one or two ideas. Really start with just meter. Okay, I'm going to try a song. I don't have to change anything else except I'm just going to mess with the meter. Try it in 5/4, 7/4, 3/4. Add a bar of 2/4 here. Just
totally. Well, I mean, any tune, try in 5/4, like Silver Bell, city sidewalks, busy sidewalk, London holiday style. In the air, there's a feeling of Christmas. All right, there's your tune. You got an arrangement, just try turning everything into 5/4 or 3/4. That's normally in 4/4. Start there, and just play around. It's fun.
It is.
It makes these Christmas tunes fresh.
Yes,
for you.
Absolutely. So that was really fun, Jodi.
Oh, so really fun. So fun. Right,
amazing.
My friends, we're wishing all of you such a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, however you celebrate this time of year. And, 2020 has been crazy. And one of the things we have, that's grown out of this crazy time is this. Amanda and my connection and our collaborations, but also what we're hoping for, which is to create a community together with all of you. So let us know, please like and share all of our stuff and go sign up for the mailing list at Music Arts Collective. Just go put your name in there. We don't harass you too much. We'll just send when we've launched things. We are hoping to support teachers, players, listeners, curious learners, and anyone who loves music as much as we do, or is even wanting to love music more, have more of a love affair.
Well, that was really, really fun. Like Jodi said, also if you didn't hear this earlier, her wonderful arrangement is up on our site as our freebie of the month. We actually have a freebie every month. So like another reason to join the mailing list. So you can go check that out. It's up there now. And thank you so much for tuning in. Happy holidays.
We'll see you in the new year, everybody.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.